There we go. All right. Not sure why my headset cut out there, so guess we're having a technical issue day. Anyway, so for Dash admin training, my headset cut out there, so let me. Guess we're having a So at dash.virtualpbx.com, this is where you would log in. Your username is going to be your email address, and your password would be emailed to you via the system. And then your account name is your company name. The main thing that we have seen, or that I have seen, is that sometimes your browser may capitalize your first letter of your email address, and you always want to make sure you change that to lowercase. You can go ahead and click on Remember Me, so that way you don't have to keep typing everything in. And otherwise, you get your forgot password link. Let's go ahead and get logged in. All right, and we're taken here to our dashboard page. Now, if you've just signed up or it's your first time logging into Dash, you're actually not going to see this right away. What's going to pop up is your account info, and essentially this is a part of the Dash wizard, which is going to take you through a few things. The main thing that people tend to change is right here, your date and time, as well as your time zone. Now this is on my user. You also have an account setting, so you can just change the time zone for the entire account. Now this is a test account, so on an actual live account, you'll have another section here for your billing information. So you could change your credit card information, for example, and you should be able to pick up previous invoices as well. But once you're done with Dash Wizard or on the user and account page, you can hit close, and you are back to our dashboard. Over here on the left, these are your main navigation sections or feature sections of your dashboard, right? So how you adjust your system settings, right? You've got here a quick snapshot of your system. Up top here, you've got your name, so that's where you can get back to your account settings to change the account-wide time zone. You have a little question mark here, which is for a couple things. To chat with us, so you can bring up the support chat window. You've got the Learn More, which takes you to the support pages on the VirtualPBX.com site. The web phone link, and as far as I know, that only shows up once you've enabled a web phone on your user. And then the online store, right there. So you can go to our web store and buy VoIP phones, for example. Over here, we've got the hamburger menu or the menu icon. These get to some other features that you can adjust. A lot of these were added on later, and or like in the case of queues, have an additional cost associated with them. And then lastly, you got the logout icon. All right, so in here we've got total users. So these are all the people on your account, right? They make and receive calls. They can log into the Dash login page, for example. Go from there. Now, below that, we got 61 total devices. So these are all the devices that are on the account. Most likely they're on users, but you might have some that are under spare devices. And a breakdown, right? So Softphone is a software application, runs on a computer, or these days, tablet or smartphone. But basically, it's to make use of your internet connection to make and receive calls. The web phone is a specialized version of the soft phone. It makes use of Chrome or Firefox, typically on a laptop or desktop computer. And you use your browser then to make and receive calls. The cell phone, that's pretty self-explanatory. A SIP phone, this is an actual physical VoIP phone. So it sits on your desk. And SIP is a particular version of VoIP phone. Like VoIP phone in general, voice over internet protocol, there are several subtypes of VoIP phones, SIP being one of them. A landline is self-explanatory. Unregistered devices, this refers to your VoIP devices. So any of the soft phones, the web phones, or the SIP phones, basically the system saying, hey, these 25 devices, they're not connected. meaning we can't send calls to it, we can't get calls from them. That could be they're not plugged in, something as simple as not turned on. It could be there's an internet issue or a network problem. Total numbers, these are all the phone numbers on your account, basically the numbers people call to get to you, right? So your customers who call in. Now we've got that broken down here, assigned numbers, meaning these are numbers that you have in use. They go somewhere. They're one of your main numbers, right? Or they go specifically to a specific person, or to a ring group, or a queue, etc. Spare numbers means they're a number on your account, but you're not using them right now. Now, every account has a certain number of phone numbers that are included as part of your plan price. So if you go over that allotment, you're going to be charged $4.99 per month per phone number. So this account is well beyond any phone number allotment, at least that I'm aware of. So I'm paying quite a bit here for extra phone numbers. The other breakdown here we have is USDID versus US toll-free, right? So toll-free, 800 number, or 888, down all the way down to 833. USDID just means a local phone number, in Los Angeles or in Dallas, Chicago, etc. Conference bridges, these are the number of users you've enabled conferencing on. So these are the people who can, you have 5 people who can host conference. Up here at the top, we've got your main numbers. So these are your general contact numbers that customers call to speak to you or your staff. Your conference numbers, these are numbers people would call into to join a conference. Your fax box number, you only get one, or you can only have one, I should say. This is so you can receive faxes. The company directory, you can download and hand out if people need to have a physical handout for like everyone's extension number. Your store discount code, right here, you can use that in the web store, and basically just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in the web store. And then the account realm, this is used for a couple things. One, if you're programming a third-party VoIP device, whether it's an application or phone, you would use that as part of that provisioning process. And also, if you're sending out an outbound fax. So on Dash, to send out a fax, it's email to fax. So you create a new email. In the email message, in the to field, you put +1, the area code and phone number of the fax number that you're faxing to, got the @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you would attach a PDF or TIFF file and send that off. The main thing about outbound faxing also, or in addition, you can only send out one attachment at a time. So like if your email client puts in a signature file, you want to make sure to remove that before you send out. And there's no point in putting text in the body of the email because that isn't transmitted. The system just says, here's the attachment, we're faxing that attachment only. All right, up here at the top, we got caller ID. Basically, normally this is a pull down. It shows all your main numbers. And then you've got your caller ID name, or company caller ID name. This is restricted to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters, the industry standard. And then once you click Save Changes, that information gets sent out to the other carriers who support company caller ID name. It takes about 3 business days for those servers to get updated. And then when you make outbound calls with your VoIP phones, then this information would show up in addition to the phone number as your caller ID. Something to keep in mind, not every carrier supports company caller ID name. We can't make them, unfortunately. So if your call happens to route through one of those carriers, then the company caller ID name doesn't get transmitted all the way through to your destination. And then even for the carriers who support it, it's a low priority. So if they have heavier than expected call volume, let's say during election time, then the company caller ID name probably won't go through at that point either. Because again, telecom, first priority, connect the call, then caller ID number, and then way, way, way back, caller ID name. All right. Down below here, we've got the company emergency address information, or E911. This is typically for your company. So this is like your headquarters address. And again, this is for your VoIP phone users. If they have to pick up the handset and dial 911, this is the default address that gets sent to emergency services. So you do want to make sure it's correct. you can set that up per device or even per phone number, depending on like where people are located, etc. And if you make any changes, click Save Changes. Right, next up, we've got hold music. So on Dash, hold music is defined as after a call has come into a user, and that user then presses hold on their phone. That's when hold music is defined as. So basically, a call has to come in, someone has to answer that call, and then they realize, oh, I have to switch on hold. They press hold on their phone. This is the file that plays. You can upload your own file via .wav or .mp3. We do recommend that you record in mono and that you keep the file size under 1 megabyte. And then you would find the file on your computer. You would click this little blue and white up arrow icon. Once it's completed uploading, you would click Save Changes. And then we've got hours, which is actually a subset of the main number settings. All right, so I'm going to go back up here to main menu, or main company numbers. So you can add numbers from either your spare number list here, or you can just buy a new number. So it's a local number search. We will search for 650. Search, and then you'll see the numbers that are available. And you can add multiple numbers if you wanted to. You see I've got one here, but I can add more. But then you click on Buy Number. System's verifying the number is still available. Then moves it to your account, activates it, and then boom, here it is on as a main number. If I don't want to use it as a main number anymore, then you unassign a number. But that doesn't remove the number from your account. It instead puts it under your spare numbers, which we'll get to shortly. But for any place where you can add a number, so on a user, on a ring group, etc., you can just add the number directly using by numbers. You can also just add a bunch of numbers via the Numbers tab and then assign them out later. Purely up to you. All right, office hours strategy, excuse me. So by default, all new accounts start as 24-hour open office. Most people switch it over to custom office hours. When you do so, you put a check mark next to each day of the week that you're open, and then you put your open hours in these boxes to the right. And this is in 24-hour or military time. You also have the option down here at the bottom. If you put a check mark here, it says saying that you're closed for lunch, and then you can include your lunch option or your lunch hours. Excuse me. Next up, we have the office holidays. So if you're closed for office holidays, you put a check mark here. And then over to the right, you can have the option of adding a single day holiday, a date range, or advanced. Basically, it creates a new row. So we'll get President's Day for a single day, right? You give it a name, so you know what it is. And then you select the month and date that you want here. And then you click on Save Changes, right? Date range, similar. Here's the start date. Here's the end date. Yeah, for Christmas. And then this retreat here, that's the advanced option where you say, I'm saying, hey, the first Friday in July, we're on holiday. Now, one thing to keep in mind, there's no year indicator on these. So for a holiday that moves, right, the date changes, like President's Day, for example, you would want to come back in a couple days afterwards and then adjust the date and then click Save Changes. You don't want to just necessarily do it the day after because sometimes the date change moves it to the day after, so then you're closed an extra day on accident. And then the other caveat is for a date range. You do not want to have a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day because the system basically puts you in holiday mode all year. It doesn't know which years you're talking about. And obviously, you can delete any of these as you need to when you no longer need them. All right, incoming call handling. Now, these are for your main numbers. All right, so all your main numbers are going to behave the same way. They're going to have the same initial routing. They're going to have the same greeting, depending on how you have it set up. Now, I left this on the 24-hour open office, but if you had lunch hours and after hours, you would have subtabs here for those right now. So we only have the open hours and holidays. but you can have those other two tabs show up. And then you have how the calls are going to be handled. So this first option here, calls come in, they go to your virtual receptionist. If you're a vConsole customer who's moving over to Dash, this would be similar to calls, the ring to location. Calls come in, go to the auto attendant. Same idea here. You click on the link for the virtual receptionist, opens up a new window. On the left, you've got your main menu, right? This is what people press on their phones to navigate through your phone system. Right, and you can add routes, so you can have a different options here, and have a limitation here because of the software. And then you can have here your different locations. So you have the directory, right? Send them right to the directory. You can have it to a specific person, one of your users. Scroll down, scroll down. Call queues, if you're making use of ACD queues, you can send them to a queue. Devices, you can send it to a specific device, so like someone's cell phone or someone's VoIP phone. The downside is that you want to make sure that device has a voicemail, because if no one picks up, the system will just end the call. You can send it to a media file, so basically the media file plays, but then the call will end. There is a way to have it reroute back to the system. That's basically advanced configuration, which we'd have to talk to our DevOps and our sales teams, because that might include a cost. Groups are basically departments. So ACD queues are an advanced version of groups. Groups are the simple version. So groups are included as part of your plan. You can also send it to a voicemail box, basically say, hey, just leave a message. And that's it there. Now, over here on the right, we've got your greetings, your greeting options. So first step is text-to-speech. You type it in, you click update here, save, and then save changes. There's no charge for it. It's a computerized and robotic voice. You can upload your own file. You can find the file on computer. Basic.wave.mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. And you click update. If you already have files on the computer, this will be a pull down here where you can, on the system, that you can select from, so you can change it as needed. Record it over the phone. So if you don't have a recording in place, then this is pretty simple. You just follow these steps right here. Now this PIN number is specific for the time of day, right? So right now this is the open hours menu. So that PIN is for open hours. If I want to do it for holidays, it's going to be a different PIN number, but I have to make sure the system is also in the holiday mode to make that recording. If you already have a recording in place, right? So you already have a main greeting, it's coming up, and you want, you have a new promotion coming up, so you want to change your main greeting to reflect that new promotion. When you call in, the main greeting, your existing greeting plays. You can hit your PIN number, and then the system will walk you through recording it. The downside of that in that particular scenario is, so you have greeting A already in place, and then you record the new greeting. So the file name stays as greeting A, but the content has changed to what you just recorded. So that's something to keep in mind. So i.e., if you wanted to keep that original recording of greeting A, you'd want to either rename it or make a copy of it or something so you can upload it later. Oh, also by default, for record by phone, the system is designed to recognize this option only with a VoIP phone on the account. If you wish to use a cell phone or a landline, you're going to want to email support@virtualpbx.com, saying you'd like to enable recording from an outside line for your main greeting, and then they can enable that for you. And that's just a security feature so that some random person doesn't try to call in and try to guess the PIN number to try to record a greeting that you don't want. All right, settings here. Number of retries on this dial, I have it set to 2. You can set it to any number. But basically what you're saying is someone has called in, listened to your greeting, and they keep pressing 7, which I don't have designated for anything. So if they keep hitting 7, after a while the system's going to end the call. Now, if right here, when I added temporarily anyway, is this is a default route. So if on that second mistry, or after that second mistry, then the system would send them to the smart directory. Most people tend to have the default go to a voicemail. We don't typically recommend this any longer, at least in terms of having a default route, because of robodialers. Right, robodialers can call in, they'll hear your greeting play a couple of times, and then eventually get to your voicemail box. That's just using up minutes, because then they're going to leave you some weird message on your voicemail, like a music file playing or traffic or something. So we normally say don't use a default route, and that'll cut down on traffic from robodialers. Now, if you make any changes in your virtual receptionist, whether on the main menu or your greetings, you need to click Save here. All right, that closes that window, but then you also need to click Save Changes here. And that way all your changes get saved. If you miss one of those, your settings won't save, and you run the risk of having the system say the menu has not been created for this account. All right, second option here, calls come in. I'm offering it to Bob. If Bob doesn't pick up, it goes to the virtual receptionist. This virtual receptionist is the same options I already set up on the other window for the previous routing option. But again, you have other options here, right? I can send it to different people. I can scroll down further. I can send it to one of my call queues. I can send it to a specific device. And you should also have ring groups down here. Oh, media file. So you have a greeting play, and then goes to your virtual receptionist. Kind of my point, I don't know why you would do that instead of just doing the first call routing option. And then down here, groups. Right, so I can send it to my support group and then go to virtual receptionist. Basically, the idea is you're giving a staff member a chance to answer the call first. If they can't, then your inbound caller can get to the virtual receptionist, hit a menu option or an extension number. Third option, call comes in. I'm offering it to Bob. Again, you can offer it to the same options as before: ring groups, media file, queue, etc. They don't pick up, and then I'm sending it to voicemail. Now, there's one additional option here is that you can scroll all the way down to the bottom. You can just say, hey, don't even bother trying to offer to someone, just go straight to voicemail. So, like, you're closed for, going on holiday and close the whole office, that sort of thing. Right. Now, your holiday tab here, your virtual receptionist can be completely different than your open hours, like it is in this case. Obviously, you would have a probably different greeting because it's holidays, but you can customize the routing per your holidays, your after hours, your lunch hours, and your open hours. You still have these three main options. Your main conference numbers, again, you can add from spare or buy new ones. You can unassign them if you don't want them. The custom greeting is a text-to-speech greeting. That's pretty much that. Basically, you do need to make sure you've enabled conferencing on at least one user to make proper use of this. All right, the main fax box number, again, you can only have one. And this is, so again, so you can receive faxes, but once you have a fax box number, then you can also set it up to send faxes out. You click Edit Fax Box. Now, on your account, it'll show up properly as a box with two fields. On this account, the test account, so it doesn't actually show up properly. But you have two fields. So the first field is for an email address, basically saying, hey, which email address is accepting the faxes? Basically, any fax that comes in, they get a PDF attachment saying, hey, here's the fax that came through. The other field is for adding a domain. So like if you own your own email domain, like abccleaners.com, then you can add that domain in that second field so that anyone at your company who has that email, has an email that ends in that domain, they can send a fax out. They don't have to be a user on your account. Like your intern say, hey, send out these faxes. You give them a list, and they just have to follow the format of the +1 area code and phone number at symbol the account realm, attach a PDF, boom, they're done. All right, numbers, kind of alluded to this before. So these are all the numbers on the account. Under spare numbers, you can also buy numbers from here as well. The other thing you can do is if you have a spare number you're not going to use anymore, if you have a check mark in it, then now you have the option to delete it. until you remove it from your account. You can port a number, and so port in telecom terminology means you're moving a number from one carrier to another. So say from AT&T to VirtualPBX. Clicking on this will start the port process, and you can follow the on-screen instructions. The main things is that we need a copy of your bill and a completed letter of agency, or LOA. Now, in that port process, you have the option to download a blank LOA, and then you can fill it out and send it back. If you don't want to go through the on-screen process, you can simply email porting@VirtualPBX with those two documents, and they can then process the port request from there. The main things to remember about the LOA, it needs to be filled out. So like it'll ask for your company name. So the company name and the company information needs to match what your current carrier has on file for you, right? So whatever, say, AT&T has for your company name, that's what should be there, the address, etc., as well as who signed for it. And it does need to have a signature. Now, it can be a digital signature, or someone actually uses a pen and signs it. It can't just be typed out for both the name and then the signature name. But then once they get that, we send it off. Hopefully everything matches. They give us a port release date, and we let you know. If there's a problem with any of the documentation, they'll give us an error saying, hey, it's rejected because the address was wrong, or the user was wrong, or whatever. We will then communicate that to you. Now, we won't get the specific error, right? They won't tell us, oh, the zip code was 2 digits off, or, it's not, it should be signed by so-and-so instead of Bob. They're not going to tell us that. They're just going to say it's wrong. At that point, you're going to want to contact your current carrier to find out what they actually have on file for you, and either get what's called a customer service record or a phone service record and get that to us, so then we can update the records, or you can fill out a new LOA to match what they have on file, whichever is easiest for you. All right, users. These are all the users on the account. You can add a new user up here. You need to put in their name. Their email address used for login, that's unique for every user, i.e. you can't use support@virtualpbx.com for 5 different people, because you can only use it once for one person. Password, you can create a password for the user. The main extension, so on this system, I started off with extension 1000, so the system just assumes I would continue along that streak. And so it says, hey, the next one available that starts with 1000 is 1027. I can change this, and I can make it 7512 if I want to. Doesn't matter. By default, new users are created with with their own voicemail box. This one at the bottom is the other one I say you should check, which is say, hey, send credentials to the user so they know how to log in. The other two here are optional, including in the company directory. Yes or no, okay, check mark as yes. And then send an email to alternate address. This would be in addition to the email that address used for login, you can have like the voicemail sent to a second email address. And then you click either create user or create user and add another if you're adding multiple people. All right, so once you added people, you notice that like Bob here, just a little gray person icon, whereas Bernard and David, they have the little blue suits. The little blue suit means they're system admin, meaning they can do all the changes we're going through here. Right? The little gray person icon means they're just a standard user. You click on a person's name, you can change their name. You can change their credentials, right? So their email address or their passwords. You also have the option right here. So if one of your users said, hey, I forgot my password, I can't log in, you can say here, you can go in and click here, and you'll have the system send out a password reset email to the person. Obviously, you could just change the password and then tell them, here's your new password, whatever works for you. Voicemail box PIN number. If your users are predominantly VoIP phone users, then you don't have to set up a voicemail box PIN, because basically what they can do is from their VoIP phone, pick up the handset, hit *98. That logs them into the default extension on that phone. and then the system will prompt them to create a PIN number, but also to record their greeting. If your people are mostly checking voicemail via landline or cell phone, then you do need to create a PIN number for them. All right, here again, you have the option to send to alternate addresses. And then here you can either put them in or take them out of the user directory. This is typically pull down, so you can change a user to an admin or an admin back to a user. The only caveat is if you're the only person on your account, please don't change yourself to a user. Just leave yourself as an admin. This is your time zone for this user. Language, English, French, or Russian. I believe we recently added German. Ringing timeout. This is the default amount of time that we try to ring the devices on this user. So when you add a new user, the actual default is 20 seconds, which is going to be fine for your landlines and your hardline VoIP phones. Anything that uses mobile data or your cellular network, you'd want to change it up to like 45 seconds. That's in this example, just because it takes longer to route calls to a cell phone, especially. Right, but if you're using mobile data, you're still using that cell phone tower to get a hold of you. You've got your default extension, and then the caller ID. All right, you can click on the extension box for a person, and you can add additional extensions. Phone numbers, you can add a phone number from spare numbers or buy a number. And that would be a number that goes straight to this person, right? They don't have to go through the virtual receptionist. It's right to Bob. Basically, like salespeople tend to like that more often than not. You can click on the device boxes. You can see all the devices here. You can add more than 4, which is a difference from the console. You can add from spare devices. You can add new devices. So here we got SIP phone, again, a particular type of VoIP phone. And these are the manufacturers that we support what's called auto provisioning, basically simple programming. You would click on your manufacturer and you would find your model of phone. Once you select that, then the system is going to ask you for the MAC address of the phone, typically it's here on the back, and then you want to name the device, like Bob's phone, or in this case, David's phone. And then you would click on Create Device, and then you would click Save Changes. After that, in terms of the dashboard, you're done. But you do need to go into the phone's web user interface to enter in a URL. And this is information you can find under our website, right? VirtualPBX.com, mouse over support, go to dash support. There's a add VoIP phones and add auto provision phone links. And those are the ones you would need. But basically, you add that URL, tells the phone, hey, get down the internet, go to this URL. Phone goes there. Server says, what's your MAC address? Says, okay, looks it up. I know who you are and what system you're on. Here's your configuration file, Mr. Phone. Phone says, hey, thanks. Reboots a couple times. And then the phone should connect, show up as green on your system, but then you can use that phone to make and receive calls, and you can use the feature codes, etc. All right, cell phone and landline are basically the same, so I'm just going to cover it here. Basically, you give it a name, and then you put the phone number, +1, area code and number, and then you click Create Device and Save Changes. Now, I'm going to go to this one here. I'm just setting it back to what the default is typically. So this is how a cell phone or landline starts off at. So when Dash offers a call to a cell phone or landline, right, the phone will ring, you would pick up, you'll hear, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. By pressing 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, you want to talk to that person, it connects the inbound caller to you, you start talking. That doesn't work for everybody. Like maybe you're just using a cell phone in place of you're sending a caller to an automated answering service. In that case, the automated answering service can't press 1. So you want to put a check mark here, allow use of cell phone's voicemail. Like Save Changes. And then what that does is you don't have to press 1. Right? So call comes in, rings your phone, picks up, we connect the call. So to your automated answering service, it's great because then they start handling the call. just going to your cell phone, you pick up, that's fine, right? You just start talking. However, if your cell phone voicemail picks up, then the call goes to that voicemail. So that's the caveat there. If you are a former vConsole customer, just bear in mind you cannot make an outbound call on Dash via your cell phone or your landline, nor can you transfer a call. Basically, it comes to you on that device, and that's it. The other thing that people tend to change is this one here, is that keep original caller ID. So call comes in, your cell phone, you look at it, and it's that person's phone number, whoever's calling, right? If you uncheck this, instead what shows up is your VirtualPBX phone number, right? Whichever, like your main number, or if you have a number on your user, that's the number that shows up on the caller ID. So that way you know, hey, this is a work call, not some random telemarketer calling you. All right, soft phone. Please read this warning message, but basically saying, hey, make sure your E911 is up to date. And when you close, now this is, you give it a name, and then the username and password you want to leave alone. Just keep them as is. And by default, this is set up to as a use a third-party application, meaning like you're using XLite from Counterpath, just soft phone application, or you're going to use this to program a phone because you couldn't find it on the list of the SIP phones. All right, so then you would create device, you'd click Save Changes, you'd use this information to program your application or phone. Now, if you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone app, what you would want to do, if it says use third-party application, you want to click there. That flips it. Says, okay, you're using a VirtualPBX application. You give it a device name. You click Create Device, and you would click Save Changes. And after you click Save Changes, what happens is, A, that system then emails this person, this user that you added the phone to, their login credentials for using the app. Now, if they're going to use the app, say, on an Android phone or iPhone, they can just go to the relevant app store, download that app, use those login credentials, and they're good to go. We do have a desktop version for Windows and Mac OS. However, that does require a license fee, so you'd want to handle that through the web store link up here. And then you would get the download link, and then you can download to your relevant computer. The last one I'm going to cover here is the web phone. Again, it has that same indicator for the E911. Basically, you just give it a device name, you click Create Device, and then you would click Save Changes. The web phone uses the same login information as your Dash login, right? So once you've got it set up, you click Create Device and Save Changes, then you can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, use your Dash login, and you can make and receive calls right there from the browser, again, using Chrome and Firefox. All right, let's go over to the user features. First is caller ID number. So this only applies to users that have their own phone number. Basically, you enable it. You're saying, hey, use the phone number I have on this user. That's for their outbound caller ID. Right? If they don't have a phone number, you can't enable it until you add a phone number to the user. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. So off means you're not using call forwarding. On means you are. And then you set up the phone number that you're sending the call to. Now, whatever device you're sending it to, that should not be your typical day-to-day device, right? Anything you use every day, right, that should be a device on your user. Anything you're forwarding to is something you use occasionally or very rarely, so it should not be a device on the user. Now, the advantage of failover mode, this is for your VoIP phone users, right? Because the system can detect when the VoIP phone's connected or not, right? Registered or unregistered. So with failover mode enabled, what happens is the system detects, oh, David's VoIP phone just went offline. Call comes into David at that time. The system will automatically send it to the forwarding device. Right, so then you can pick up the phone and answer the call and then find out, okay, what just happened to my VoIP phone? Like, did I lose internet? Did the dog walk by and like rip out the cable on it? Whatever. Also, one thing to keep in mind for call forwarding, your users can set this up themselves. They can do so via the user portal, which we'll get to a bit later. They can also, if for VoIP phone users, they can also set up call forwarding from their VoIP phone using feature code. So this is not something you have to set up for them every time. It's like they can do it themselves. And then you would click on Save Change. Right. Hot desking, this is also a VoIP phone user. And this is in a case where your staff moves their desks from day to day, right? So one day they're sitting at desk number 7, the other day they sit at desk 23. They still want to get their calls. So when you enable it, you click, you create a hot desk ID. I usually say just make it the extension number if possible. I do believe it needs to be 4 digits, but I could be wrong. Actually, I guess it's not. But then, so they sit down at a desk, they pick up the VoIP phone, they hit *11 on the phone. The system will ask them for the hot desk ID. They enter that, a PIN number if you enable that. And then the system says, okay, calls will be sent to this device. So now whenever calls come in for that particular user, so in this case David, they'll go to the phone he's sitting at for that day. At the end of the day, he picks up the phone, hits *12 to turn off hot desking. Right, the next day comes in, oh, he's sitting at a completely different desk. Picks up the phone, hits *11 again, does the same thing. He'll still get his calls to his user wherever he's sitting. Voicemail box, again, every user by default gets created with a voicemail box. Fax box, you can have users have their own fax box. I typically recommend making use of a phone number. You can use an extension. The downside of that is, one, you have to find an extension on the system, but basically you're then relying on the person who's faxing to you to call your main number, hit the extension number, and then hit start fax on their fax machine. And I don't know if you know how well that would work, say, on an email to fax service. Whereas if you just select a number, then they can just enter the number on the fax machine, hit send fax, and walk away, which is what I used to do when I had to do a lot of fax. Conference bridge, again, enabled or disabled. So if it's enabled, that means this person can host or moderate a conference. Gives you the phone numbers and then your pins, and then you can create their personal conference room pin. Follow me, this is for people with multiple devices. All right, so now you've got your default ring time for multiple devices is 120 seconds. And then it's going to say, I have it set up right now that I'm ringing my web phone, then this March 2020 phone, and then a test device. These are sliders. So I can slide things around so I can have more overlap if I want. I can have them all ring the whole time, blast ringing all my devices. You can click and drag these devices around. You can click distribute, so now it's going in order. I have this other device here, so I can always add it back in, or again, redistribute second time. You can also, and you can change this ring duration down to 60 seconds, for instance, or higher, like to 40, etc. Music on hold. Users can have their own on-hold music. This is something, as an admin, you would have to do for them. So basically, you would enable it, and then you would upload the file, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. Customized call recording. So let me set this back to the default so you can see what it looks like. All right. So say I want to enable customized call recording. I click enable. Now, if I click Save Changes right here, I haven't done anything really in terms of call recording, because you notice the account default is set to off. So now you've got these 4 options here. Inbound internal means Bob Smith, right, another user on the account, called me, and I'm going to record those calls. All right. Now, inbound external means a customer called me. I definitely want to record that. Now, outbound internal means I called Bob back. And then outbound external means I called a customer. So normally I see something either. So often I see something like this where the internal ones are disabled or they're all enabled. and you just want to make sure whichever it is you want to record, make sure they're set to on, and then click Save Changes. Right, and then you have the option to put your user on Do Not Disturb, meaning calls go to voicemail. All right, groups is shorthand for ring groups, basically departments. You can create a new group. You give it a name. You give it an extension number, which is essentially what your other staff members would use to transfer calls to it. And then you would click and drag the people you want to be in the group, and then you would click on Create Group. Now, once you've created a group, you can click on the name. You can change the name. You also have this dialing repeats and these little arrows here to the right, which you can increase or decrease. Basically, how many times can the inbound caller come in and ring each of the people in the group. All right, so in this case, I'm saying that person can do that twice. And then obviously the option to delete. If you click on the members box, you see all the people in the group. You see that I have distribute going so that it's ringing each person in roughly 40 seconds, it looks like, a little bit longer. Right up here is the total ringing time, which on this group is 240 seconds, which is a bit long. Now, likewise, under the follow me calling settings, right, I can click and drag and I can change the order around to however I see fit. Just because that's a little messy in terms of, people's eyesight, so you say, okay, let's redistribute, give that an order. But again, sliders, so I can have it ring everybody for the entire time. Now, a couple things about ring groups. It will ring all the devices on the user. Right, so David here, right, he's got 4 devices, so when a call comes in to this ring group that he's in, all 4 of his phones will ring until he picks up, or until another staff member picks up. Another thing to keep in mind is, even if, say, like Bob took a call and another caller comes into this group, his phone, he will hear our call waiting beep until one of the other staff members picks up the call. The advantage of ring groups have over queues is that your staff members can make use of cell phones or landline to receive the calls, whereas on queues, it's only the VoIP phone. All right. Extension box, you can add additional extensions. Again, phone numbers. You can add phone numbers either from spare or by numbers. Basically, this number goes, again, directly into the group. It doesn't have to ring in through the virtual receptionist. Then you've got group features. Okay, ring back. This is basically a file that will play while your customer is waiting for one of your staff members to pick up. So kind of like hold music. Main thing is if you have it enabled, then you want to make sure the file that you use has at least the same duration as your ringing time of the group. So this group was 240 seconds. I want to make sure this file is at least 240 seconds long. The system will not automatically loop the file for me. Again, if you upload your own file, .wav, .mp3, recorded to mono under 1 megabyte. Next action, if you enable it, basically said, hey, if no one answers, what do you want to do with the call? In this case, I'm sending it to Bob's voicemail box. But you've got other options. Right, you can send it back to your virtual receptionist. You can send it to a different group. You can send it to a specific user. And then to whatever voicemail box you want. Allow call forwarding. Basically, if you enable this, you're allowing your users to make use of the call forwarding feature on their user, i.e., someone's going to be away from they're going to be out and about, not at their desk. They said, well, here, just call forward so I can still take the call. If you don't, then they're not going to make use of call forward for those calls that come into the group. Caller ID prepend, if you enable it, this is for VoIP phones. You can add additional either text or numbers in front of the caller ID. So this is a way to let your staff know what kind of call they're about to get. All right, devices. Shows all the devices on the account. Green meaning on the phone means, hey, it's connected, or as far as the system knows, we can send a call to it. Red means it's not registered. If you ever see a black phone, you can Hit the wrong. There we go. All right. So a black device means it's disabled. So you can just click it back on, and it's good to go. You can add devices up here. The main thing is, I would say, if you're going to make use of the VirtualPBX soft phone or the web phone, you want to do that on the users page versus here. But beyond that, you can add any of the devices here. Voicemail boxes shows all the voicemail boxes on the account. You can create your own voicemail boxes here, and that's usually going to be for your ring groups or if you make use of queues. The system will always have a main voicemail box. It just automatically creates that. And then obviously, since by default users created with a voicemail box, they'll have their own. If you click on the little wrench icon, you can see you can change the name, the PIN, etc. You go to advanced. So on a new voicemail box, you're going to want to make sure to either upload a greeting or record it over the phone. Recipients, you would want to add an email address here so that way someone knows that there's a voicemail in that particular box. And then once you've done those under options, you can then click on already set up. And then the other thing to consider is delete after notification. You might want to look at this for all of your voicemail boxes. On Dash, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, if someone tries to leave a voicemail, they get a message saying, mailbox is full, please try again later. Not usually that helpful. So if you have delete after notification checked, then what happens is the system automatically emails the user, for example, an email saying, hey, you have a voicemail, and here's the file. You can listen to it. Once that voicemail or that email goes out, then with delete after notification enabled, the system just deletes it out of the voicemail box because you already have it. All right, that way you don't have to worry about filling up your voicemail box. It basically comes down to how good are you and your staff about checking their voicemails and deleting them. If they're good about it, then you don't have to worry about it. All right, the greetings manager. You can see all the greetings you've uploaded to the account. Here's their names, the type or the source, basically recording, right? TTS, text to speech, upload. Recording means you recorded over the phone. You can download the file so you can listen to it. You can click on the little wrench icon here so you can change the name so it's more easily identified. Or you can say, hey, I don't need this, delete it as well. Helps shorten your pull down list, basically. Your call logs, this shows your call activity on the account. A green arrow to the right means that's an inbound call. If you see a yellow arrow to the left, that means it's an outbound call. You can click on them to get a little bit more detail about where they were going. Normal clearing means that as far as the system is concerned, the call ended normally. You can also click on like the technical details to see more information. Sometimes you might need to send that to support. And that, in fact, what you can do, let's say, okay, this call was a problem for whatever reason. You can click on the little fire hydrant here, and this will create an email. And then you can put in the email, you can say, hey, this call never actually rang to my phone. Send it off. It'll send the technical details to support at virtualpbx.com automatically. And hopefully your description is enough for the staff to go in and figure out what happened or why it didn't ring. You can also download your call logs here. You can do your custom date range, etc. Feature codes. These are mostly VoIP phone codes you can dial from your dial pad. So you have your call forwarding here, hot desking, the miscellaneous. So like the check voicemail, *97, you can actually do that from a cell phone or a landline, because I've done that. All right. So now we're going to go over here. So we're on the dashboard right now. Next up is ACD queues. So ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution, call center feature. We have two versions of queues. There is ACD queues and then ACD queues Pro. ACD queues, I believe, are between $15 and $30 per month. I believe that depends on the plan you're on. ACD queues Pro is $99 At least last I saw. That could, again, vary by plan. You can add a new queue. It says here, give me a name, give me a number. But if you click here on gear icon, all right, so you can give it a name here. A queue can have either a phone number to get into or an extension. The queue routing strategy, not showing them all. So round robin basically equals out over time. There is least offered, meaning whoever has had the least amount of calls sent to them gets the next call, right? So Mary's had 5 calls sent to her. Bob's had 20. Mary's getting the next call that comes in. Right? Now, there's also least calls. So let's say Mary spoke to all 5 of her people, but Bob's only spoken to 2 people out of his 20. Next call that comes in goes to Bob. And then there's also most idle, basically who's been waiting for a call the longest. Gets the next call that comes in. Hold treatment, basically hold music. Queue timeout in seconds. Basically, how long can people wait on hold? Queue call limit, you can limit the number of people who are waiting on hold, right? So 0 means there's no limit, but I can say, hey, put it at 10. That means only 10 people can be in the queue. Timeout immediately if empty. So basically, I have no staff members logged in. Treat it as if any call that comes in, they've timed out automatically. Escalation queue. So if there's no one logged into the queue, I can send them to an escalation queue, meaning I have 2 queues. If I have set this to none, then at that timeout example, then they would go to this voicemail box. Agent behavior, recovery time. That's a long amount of time. But basically, time after a staff member has finished a queue call before they're offered another queue call. Measured in seconds, typically anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds. Force away on rejected or missed basically means a staff member misses their call, the system will put them in away mode until they put themselves back in ready mode. And then agent connect timeout, basically how much time is the system trying to let an inbound call connect to an agent? In this case, 20 seconds. All right, so then you got the members icon here, all right, person with a headset. And then so you see all the members here, you click manage members. So the list on your left, these are staff members who are not yet in the queue, whereas people on the right, these are people who can be in the queues. So once you put people over to the right, you can then assign them back to the queues. So if you click on a queue, you can add agents or add managers. But if you're adding agents, it says, okay, I only have these 2 people. You can start adding other people, and then click on Save Changes, and then they can then log into the queue. Speaking of logging into the queue, so any of your agents would click on up here on the hamburger icon, click on Queues. Then at the top here, they would click on Begin Session. It puts them in away mode by default. Then they can mark themselves as ready. So that means any queue that they're assigned to, they'll be ready to take call. This little phone icon here, they can select their VoIP devices to receive calls on, or select them all, right? So that way all of their VoIP phones will ring at the same time. All right. Blacklist basically allows you to create a list, let's go to edit, where you can block phone numbers from contacting your system. Right, so I'm in the Coco list here, or Cuckoo. I would click add number. I put +1 area code and phone number, and then I can keep adding more if I need to. I would click save. I go back to settings, and then you would make sure that's in this selected section here. Right, if it's over here, then I don't have any active blacklist glowing, so anyone can call me. Then if I move it here, I click update. Any phone number on this list, when they try to call my system, they get a busy signal. Faxes, you can get to any fax box as an admin. You can get to any fax box on the account. You can see what their inbound faxes are like or their outbound faxes. And then also the emailed fax logs, which can tell you, hey, why did this not go through? You say, hey, fax number is invalid. Usually we see something like invalid attachment or something like that nature. Monitor, this shows you what your staff is up to. So green means they're waiting for a call. Blue means they're on an inbound call. Red means they've marked themselves away. Yellow means they're on external call, and gold is they're on recovery time from a queue call. You also hear available or busy. Recording Manager, this takes you to the storage site for your call recordings under AWS. Reports is currently in beta, so this is the advanced reporting. So I actually haven't seen it recently, but basically it's a more refined version of the call logs. I don't know what, it's in beta, so I have no idea when it's going live or what kind of pricing is involved, or if there is. User portal, everyone, so even your normal staff members, have access to their own user portal, right? So this is my own user portal here, so I can see my voicemails. Now, I have do not with a delete after notification, so I'm never going to see voicemails here, right? If I didn't have that, I would see voicemails going down. So then you would have the option to play back a voicemail, or to delete it, or to save it, etc. Your call history, you would see your history of your calls. Faxes, this user doesn't have a fax box. The contact list, this is just within your account. You cannot add your own personal contacts to this. This is just basically saying, hey, these are all the different people or groups, etc., on your account. Conference, this allows you to manage your conferences. You can invite other staff members or other users on the account to your conference. You can lock it so people just can't randomly join it. You can mute everybody. You can unmute everybody. You can end the conference. When you're actually in a conference on a participant level, you can actually mute a specific person as well as kick a particular person. And then there's information here about your pins, etc. And then settings and devices, again, for users, right? This is where they can enable their own call forwarding, and they can choose the number that they're sending it to, etc. And click save. And they can also see the status of their devices. Wrong thing. Let's see. Oh, voicemail manager. As an admin, you can get to any voicemail box on the account. So again, you can see what. Oh, see, here's a message. See when it came in, from where, the caller ID. You can play back. You can download. If you put a check mark here, then you've got the options to say deleted or what have you. And then webhooks is if you're going to make use of APIs to link Dash to other software. If you want to make use of that, you would want to talk to our sales team so they can go over everything with it in terms of basically you're going to have to program that to make proper use of it. And that is everything. So I'm going to hang out for a minute or two here in case anyone has questions they want to submit via the chat. Beyond that, I thank you for your time today. We essentially try to have the training every Tuesdays. There are the previous trainings you can always get back to on YouTube if you need to, or you need to have other staff look at it so they know what's going on. And there's also one linked on the Dash support pages. All right, I'm not seeing any chats come through, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Again, I thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.